Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of We Should Have Recorded This, That. I would do that one more time. We'll do that.
Oh,
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of We Should Have Recorded That with Phil and...
Adam.
Hey, Adam.
Hey, how are you, Phil?
I'm doing good. How are you doing today?
I am hanging in there.
Yeah, that's a good place to be, Sometimes that's all we got.
Sometimes it's better than the alternative.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to end my day with some Philip time.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's just you and me today.
It is. It's just us. Just us.
Yes. So, shall we get into it? How can people share their love with us?
So, everyone, we say this every week, but really, we do want you to reach out to us. We are having a conversation, and you can be a part of the conversation. And so, please reach out to us on Facebook and Instagram at Waserp Wapa, the title. And you can also reach out to us on YouTube by the name of our podcast. We should have recorded that with Phil and Adam. So please reach out to us. We love your comments, and we'll try to listen to them.
Yeah, I had a friend this week who told me he did listen to our podcast,
Great.
and he described it as wholesome.
Well, that is a nice title. I mean,
yes, I like that.
Yeah.
We are wholesome. We're like, at least you are, Phil.
No, I'm sure. I feel like you sound more thoughtful than I do. So, I mean.
Well, yes. So I'm just going to read Christopher's comment. I checked out your podcast. Pretty neat program you got going on there. All the best. And then I thanked him for checking it out. He said, it's pretty cool and wholesome. Thumbs up, man. Go us.
Yeah. Yes.
You bring the cool and the wholesome. I'll bring I don't really know what my contribution is here.
I have an off task statement. When I think of wholesome, I think of like whole wheat bread. I don't like, does that have you thought?
I think whole wheat bread is very wholesome.
I mean, like, I remember when it kind of like was started to become a thing, like wanting to get
I mean, let's be fair. Whole grain bread was a thing long before processed bleached flour bread.
Well, yeah, but you know what I'm saying, in a popular cultural sense,
Oh, okay, like after the fad of the white bread.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
But anyway, do we have any other comments?
Not to my recollection.
I don't think so either. But I feel a lot of people seemed to be interested in our conversation with Caitlin. And so thank you all for your likes on Instagram and everything. And so, yeah, if you please, like, reach out to us like Caitlin did. She listened to the podcast. Of course, she knows us, but she reached out. She was sharing her thoughts with us. You can do the same.
And who knows, you too could be a guest on Waserp Wapa.
Yes, you could.
Everyone's life dream.
Right. We're trying to make dreams happen here,
Yes.
Trying to make it happen.
So, Phil, what are we going to talk about today?
There is a phrase that I think I'm always thinking about, and I think it really struck me when we went to Paris with the chorale, that you don't know what you don't know.
Yes.
It's so.
Tell me why I think I know the reason, but tell our audience why.
Hmm.
Uh, Particularly when traveling abroad with, uh, Phil, was our choir tour to France your first time abroad?
Yes, it was.
Yes, and it was also the first time traveling internationally for a number of the students.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Yeah. So why did you particularly think during that experience of the phrase "you don't know what you don't know"?
Well, I mean, because like you said, we never set foot outside of the United States. And for some people, they've never even set foot outside their city or community. But but going there when I don't speak the language is kind of a
Mm-hmm.
big thing. So like you can't communicate. And
Yes.
then second thing, like not knowing the culture. Like I mean, even as much as you can try to study for that, like there's still gonna be things that you don't know, and you won't know that you don't know them until someone
Yes.
tells you.
Until you're confronted. Oh, it's so true. I
Yeah.
think travel does have a way. Travel is unique, right, in its ability to broaden our horizons,
Hmm.
make our worldview bigger.
Yeah.
And I think a couple of observations about travel pointing out to me how much I didn't know that I didn't know. Um, I My first time ever traveling um, was as part of a study abroad program. So, like many of my students who traveled with us, Phil, overseas back in 2019, um, my first time was with a group of my classmates,
Hmm.
and I remember that my whole world was turned upside down. It was like I was studying in London, and London was just this conception that I saw in movies. Like I wasn't really convinced it was a real place. But then I get off the plane. By the way, my very first time ever on a plane,
Wow.
flying with this group from Newark Airport to London Heathrow,
Hmm.
and get off the plane, and you know they're driving on the wrong side of the street, and a funny L means money, and I my world was turned upside down. And I remember at the end of that study abroad program, I was there for 4 months in London. At the end of it, I traveled with three friends through continental Europe.
Hmm.
We were in Italy, and so since I had spent the 4 months in an English-speaking nation, um, I still had not experienced living in or being in a place for an extended time where they didn't speak English.
Right.
And so I remember we flew from London to Rome, and it was my first time being around a, being around a population that didn't speak English. They were speaking Italian. And I remember saying the most ignorant thing to my friends who I was traveling with. Do you want to hear it?
Yes, I would like to.
I remember saying to them, you know, I was under the impression that everyone spoke English and that all of these languages of the world were like things that they preserved for their history, and like maybe they'd speak Italian at their Christmas party, but they didn't really speak Italian in everyday life. And my travel companions, all of whom were not quite as sheltered, naive, and ignorant as I, they were aghast. They were like, Adam, what's wrong with you? Like, you thought that Italians spoke English in their daily, everyday lives? I'm like, well, yeah, I thought maybe they just pulled out Italian for festivities.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Okay, so that's,
Yeah.
oh,
But
I
like,
didn't know what I didn't know.
right, but that's like what we see in movies, though, right? I mean, you.
But right, yes. Well, I wasn't really into watching movies with subtitles back then.
Uh
My my tastes have matured over the years.
huh.
Um, okay, and then I'll say my other thing about you don't know what you don't know.
Uh,
I I'm a pretty decent music educator, or at least I strive to be. But I didn't know until we were beginning our travels to France last year what a crummy travel educator I am. I so Phil, it's true. I uh, I of all people should have understood what your classmates who like didn't know how to get through airport security or like didn't trust using an ATM card, and so they brought way too much cash with them and then stayed in line waiting for it. Okay, I of all people, as that kid who I just described, the ignorant kid, I of all people should have patience and grace because I was that kid, right?
mm-hmm.
But instead, I am the grumpy adult who's like, "What are your shoes still on? Why are you... We're going through the airport security. Get your shoes off." And I'm like, "This is your card. It is the year 2019. Who uses cash?"
Oh man.
I'm a really, really poor travel educator. And I've reflected on that after we returned. Like,
Really.
Adam, why were you so, like, why were you not prepared for that? Why had you not thought about it? And again, you don't know what you don't know. I didn't know how many of my students' childhoods were like mine,
Mm-hmm.
really sheltered and like
Mm-hmm.
living your whole life in your hometown.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just like I assumed that the Italians didn't really speak Italian; they spoke English except on special occasions. I assumed that my students had parents who were more intentional than mine were about exposing them to the broader outside world. That second assumption is pretty much as silly as the first assumption was.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, maybe we should have had in Corral, we should have had, rented some conveyor belts and got some tubs and practice.
Practice going through airport security.
Yes, I mean, because I mean like it become like, especially if I'm taking an early morning flight, which I have to say I'm talking like I do it all the time, but which I do it a lot more than I did. But
Mm-hmm.
like I probably don't even tie my shoes, until
Mm.
after I land, because
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna take the shoes off anyway to go through TSA.
Yes.
But anyway,
I must say that occasion I had kind of gotten rusty going through regular airport security too because I have TSA pre-check.
all right, okay, mm-hmm.
And I know I'm like so spoiled, but I have TSA pre-check and like I'm just used to like strolling through security like, "Hey guys, how's it going?" I'm leaving my liquids in my bag and my
Uh-huh.
laptop doesn't come out and keep my shoes on, and so you gotta. I needed a refresher course myself.
Yeah, I think the other thing that was pretty interesting was riding the subway, because I mean you don't have a subway in Rochester.
Interesting.
Well,
As the chaperone of this group, who was charged with keeping 40 undergraduates alive, I would refer to it less as interesting and more as trauma.
I mean, and like I wasn't making fun of you as much during this, but I mean, it's kind of funny. Like I could kind of sit back and kind of laugh about that, because it wasn't my responsibility to make sure everybody's safe.
Yes. This is a little this has all been tangentially related to our topic for today. What
Yeah.
I'm about to say is truly off task.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, traveling with a group as the person in charge
Mm-hmm.
is don't get me wrong, I I believe in the importance of the work that we did on our trip. I think that so many of our goals were met, musical goals. We gave some great concerts,
Yeah.
um, and spiritual goals. I think we really, both within the group and with the people who we sang for and interacted with, I think that we had an impact. So I'm so pleased that we took the trip. I'm so pleased with how it turned out in the end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I did not enjoy it at all. I too much responsibility keeping 40 people alive. The only times I was having fun was during concerts, like when the concert was going well.
All right. Uh-huh.
Then immediately the concert was over and whoosh, worry and stress just poured right back into me, and I was like, okay, where do we have to go next? And will we get there? And where's the bus? And oh no, we don't have a bus. And who is sick? Who needs attention? Like, oh, so yeah, before COVID happened, I was thinking about going back to France this summer, 2020 summer, by myself, so that I could pee on my own time without a trail of 40 people in tow.
Right. Redeem that trip. I mean, we can jump. We'll get into our topic like earnest after this coming. But I think like for me, I want to be one of those people to remind you that yes, I think no, I know, because one of the things that changed was like the idea of missions. That was like a big issue with some of the choir.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is this a mission trip? And
Mm.
I think we emphatically answered that question. Like whenever you're just using and whenever you're using your gifts well, you're glorifying God. But
Yes.
as you're taking even the music with this message, it is touching people, and I think they got to see that. Hopefully, they experienced that. So, but yeah,
Yes. Yes. Amen.
amen.
So, Phil, um, what has been prompting you to reflect on the phrase "you don't know what you don't know"?
I mean, several things. Like some of the articles I've been reading kind of reflect on it more so from a, um, more so from a career standpoint.
Mm.
For me, just in being living, and this I think kind of what we were talking about kind of reflects on that. Like just in life, until you are confronted with information you don't know, or maybe even you don't even know how to ask the question, which I think
Mm.
like the thing for our students probably they don't know to ask where do I find X or where do I find Y.
Mm-hmm.
So if they don't know to ask the question, of course they're not going to gain any more now they're not going to gain any knowledge from that. And so like that is probably like the thing that I've been reflecting on the most. Like you don't even know that you that you are lacking the information, so you don't even know how to ask
Yes.
for the information.
Yes.
And so that's been my what has caused me to reflect on it.
Yeah. Well, I'll say, jumping off of what you said, I mean, in seeing it from students, I think as a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
I have learned that ignorance, um, ignorance does not bother me anymore. Ignorance, like my job is to lead my students from a place of ignorance. And that word seems kind of pejorative, right? But I don't mean it that way. Let's just take it at its base definition. Ignorance is the state of not knowing something.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
And my job as an educator is to lead someone on the path from ignorance to knowledge and understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And so ignorance no longer bothers me. Like, I'm happy to meet my students where they are and start from that point and lead them to where I believe they need to be. What does really bother me is what I call willful ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's related to that, the whole idea that ignorance is bliss, right? The less I know about something, the happier I will be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's entirely untrue, actually.
Yeah.
But when something is important, whether it's important because it's an issue in our world, whether it's important because someone we love values it, whether it's important because we claim we want to be in a certain career and this is vital knowledge for that career, and then you still choose to remain ignorant, but you choose not to learn. Oh, there is nothing that irks me like that. When I observe that trait in another person, and I mean, Lord God, please do not allow me ever to be willfully ignorant, and if ever I am, please cause me to repent.
I understand what you're saying, and I think I would agree. But I can for me, one of the things that I've had to overcome is that the fear of facing not knowing. You know, like to say, okay, there is in some of the articles we were reading, like like the not you don't know what you don't know is basically saying there is gaps in your knowledge, right? That there is this place where you don't know, but also like so for me, pulling back that curtain or pulling back that sheet and seeing those holes and being afraid of how I'm gonna fill in this hole, like
Mm-hmm.
some of what has kept me maybe in the past and even still from facing the things that I don't know, you know.
Do you have an example that you can share?
What is an example? I mean, I'm gonna be very, very kind of vulnerable here. I think I struggle. I mean, I probably still do a little bit struggle with reading. Um,
Mm.
and in my early kind of college, years straight out of high school, I was a really bad reader. And I think it's a very important skill. And
Mm.
so I really like I still have I'm gonna get it off the shelf. Hold on one second. I had a friend at Southern Mississippi. I don't know why she had a dictionary in her trunk, but that sounds like a great story. But she had this dictionary in her trunk, and I'm like, I was reading the Bible, like, and I'm like, there are words in the Bible that I don't know what they mean, and so I got this
Mm.
dictionary, and I started like looking at like searching those words, and so it was really just like my desire to kind of to understand the scriptures more has like gradually
Yes.
helped me overcome the fear of being so and so it was even more so the fear of reading out loud, like
Mm-hmm.
I
Yes.
can kind of fumble in my room or whatever, but when I'm in front of people, fumbling was probably like my greatest fear. And so like the only way I overcame that was like by reading and finding things I was interested in. And then so like reading scripture was one of the things that I was really interested in early on, like in my as like going from my 19 to 20. And that's how I, have overcome um that kind of that gap in my knowledge and that fear.
Yeah.
What about you? Could I ask, have you had those type of fears?
Fear, help. So I'm having trouble coming up with an example off my head. So maybe if we rephrase it, it will help. Often that's helpful to me.
Uh,
Uh, my the fear of learning something because
there's a gap, or maybe even like the the fear of not being able to learn, not being able to.
okay, yes, I'm destined to failure.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. This is a failure of mine in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Mhm.
I have chosen, I had time over the summer to learn, but I've chosen not to learn how to do video and audio editing
Mm.
because I do fear that let me tell you, my primary fear is that I will kill my soul. that I will not find it life giving work. And I know how time consuming it is, especially for the novice.
Mm-hmm.
But my secondary fear is absolutely that, just that I am allowing the perfect to be the enemy of the good. And I know I'll never be an expert audio engineer. I know that whatever videos of virtual choirs that I make will like never ever be up to the stuff that I see online. And so instead of embracing that and saying, well, I can still learn this good skill, instead, I don't allow myself to experience that failure. I am remaining willfully ignorant.
Mm. Yeah, I think, I think like in that particular case, and unless you didn't have anyone to help you out, like someone who could do that, then like that, yeah, that could be a really big problem. That could be a
Mm-hmm.
really big problem.
Yeah. And I think, there are a lot of reasons I've been so resistant to it. Um, Most of which I don't think really stand up to much scrutiny. So I'm just, I'm being vulnerable here, like bad on me. Um, but yeah, I do, and I'm not making this as an excuse. I'm just stating a fact about my weakness and my weaknesses. And one of my weaknesses during COVID-19 was that if I needed to log on to a Zoom how-to session, uh, yet another Zoom session to learn how to do this, I just couldn't bring myself. I was just living behind the screen already, and so much. And I I need Phil Woodard here, like standing over my shoulder, showing me what to do, and then maybe I could learn.
Well, I think I definitely, we talked about this before. I definitely have enjoyed the technical stuff more so than anything else that I've probably done. But so that's right. Yeah, I probably have less fear of trying to figure that out than anything else.
Mm.
But
Yeah, all awesome. Yeah. Um, Switching gears just a little bit, I gotta acknowledge one of my teachers at Florida State during my doctorate, Dr. Cliff Madsen, who would always, I mean, and I told you this, Phil, when we were shooting back and forth ideas about this episode. Oh, Dr. Madsen would say, "You don't know what you don't know."
Mm-hmm.
At least once every class. You know, I saw him 3 days a week, and at least once every class he would say, "But you don't know what you don't know." And it could be in relation to anything. It could be in relation to music. It could be in relation to teaching. It could be in relation to learning. It could be in relation to life. He always had a lot of transfers between other areas of life and our professional activity as music educators, and um, and I just have to acknowledge the wisdom in that, because um, it is a better thing to assume benevolent ignorance
Mm-hmm.
in another person than to assume some sort of malevolent intent. You know, um, I'm trying to think of an easy example. Okay, look, this is a kind of ridiculous, too basic example, but you know, I'm too basic sometimes. Uh, right? Isn't that what they
Yeah.
accuse you of? Like the young people. Oh, Dr. Potter, you're so basic when
Yeah.
they see me with a pumpkin spice latte.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. I got to make sure I've got my lingo right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but you know, the the child sees the rhythm ta ta dee ta ta on the page, but
Mm-hmm.
instead the child chants ta 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 dee ta. This it is better for us as a teacher to assume that student did not intend to mess up. It
Yeah.
is better to we should assume that child needs to be led on the path from ignorance to knowledge and understanding.
Yes. Yes.
We would be poor teachers indeed if instead we assumed that that child intentionally messed up that rhythm because they wanted to upset us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's a very, very basic example, but I think it's one that applies. That child who messed up that rhythm just didn't know what she didn't know.
Yeah. I think this there was a term here, the illusion of explanatory depth. Like we and I think if I'm explaining this right, if I think I have the right term, we think higher of ourselves in our
Mm,
than we think of others. And I think that can apply in the teacher who would just jump down the student throat. Like you don't know this rhythm, why don't you know this rhythm? Like,
yes.
you know, instead of being benevolent and then seeing, okay, let's review, maybe they forgot it, or you know, something there was a disconnect, and let's figure out where that disconnect is, what it is, and try to help them through it, because I misread rhythms too.
Yes.
I mean,
Exactly. As do I.
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
I like, and we'll post the links in the show notes, but on Medium there's an article called "The Power of Not Knowing,"
Mhm.
and I just felt like the uh, author of that really pointed out some really great reflection points about not knowing.
Yeah.
And I mean, so I just maybe Phil, we can just briefly go through a few of these. He talks about the beauty of not knowing. Do you think it's beautiful not to know something?
Yeah.
I think that this is go back to ignorance is bliss. Let's
I
flesh it out.
Yeah, I think, I mean, in what if I remember correctly, like it's the difference. And he's speaking, I think, primarily for the employee or the person in their career, but
Mm-hmm.
like just the opportunity to learn and process what you learn, to then synthesize it, as you talk about taking it and like figuring out how to apply it to other things and use it in other places, is greater than just memorizing um a set of
Mm-hmm.
facts. Is There's more beauty in that. There's more beauty in like understanding how something works and then being able to apply it to something else than just memorizing things. So
Yes. And I think there's a beauty in being able to say, I don't know,
right.
to admit, I don't know. Um, I really try to embody that in my own teaching because there's a lot I don't know, even more I don't know that I don't know.
Mm.
But if I don't know something, I really try not to pretend that I do. I
Mm.
don't think it does anyone any good.
Yeah.
Um, and I think acknowledging that others are experts in ways that we simply cannot be, um, I think that's really valuable. I mean, acknowledging that someone else knows more about a particular something does not diminish your own expertise. I think it actually enhances your expertise. You know who to go to find that information.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's okay that it's not you, right?
Right. And I think it also kind of enables us to focus on being experts maybe at one thing instead of trying to master everything, because what I don't know, and vice versa. And so yeah, I think it frees us up. It brings down the stress level in the room because i'm not
Yes.
try- I'm not trying to impress you, you're not trying to impress me, but more so, okay, this is what I know, Adam, this is what you know. Okay, we can put both of what we know together and let's get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, Phil, I don't want to cut our conversation short.
Hmm.
Um, so, is there anything else related to this that you feel we really should address?
I think just the one thing, we're definitely going to link these articles. I really did like the Medium article because I think he really kind of walks you through how to look at what you don't know and then what to do next. And I think, like, if it's something that you need to do yourself, like again, for me with becoming a better reader, like
Mm-hmm.
the first step is admitting that you don't know.
Yes.
And he says, then you start to work on how to make those changes, the things
Right.
to do
Yes.
to fill those gaps. And so I would just encourage everyone to to be willing to face those challenges, be willing to ask yourself, what, and don't try to figure out everything you don't know. I think that's the other thing we need to say.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try to figure out everything you don't know, looking at your whole life and say, there everything, what is going to help me be better tomorrow? What is the one thing that I can maybe look into and that's going to help me be better tomorrow? And then as you kind of master those things, and you just continue to master other things.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So
Hmm. Shall we move into our final segments?
yes, we shall. Let's do it.
All right. What is your current event this week?
Man, there was like so much new. There was like so much.
What? We're recording this on the 6th of October,
Mm.
2020.
Yes.
What? There's nothing that's happened in the week since we've seen one another last.
There was nothing at all that happened. I told Wendy, my wife, that we're gonna all come out of 2020 5 years older than we.
Yes. Yes. Easily.
He's easily 5 years older than when we went into it. I think I'm gonna share a joke. So,
You're
um,
gonna share a joke as your current event?
so,
Yes.
so I saw an article about SNL and Saturday Night Live for those who don't know. And so I was like, let me check it out. I watched it, and on the what is it? Weekend edition, I think, is what
Mm-hmm.
it's called.
Weekend
Um,
update.
Weekend update. That's exactly.
Yep.
The guy says, so many people are wishing Donald Trump well. And he's like, they're really doing that because their first wish came true. You get it?
Oh, yes. I never thought the German term Schadenfreude would be trending
uh,
on social media, but
mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. So
I yeah,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm not the kind of person who wants anyone to get sick.
Right. I feel like this conversation to go in a totally different direction. I was like, go ahead.
I I'm not the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
okay. No. I don't want to be the kind of person who wants anyone to get sick.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I hope that the president has a full recovery,
Yes.
a full, swift recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Why
Okay.
are you looking at me this way, Phil?
I mean, I just feel like you're kind of like holding back.
I, ugh,
It's okay. It's
I, I don't, I'm sorry. Uh, I mean, Phil, you and I released, or we recorded a bonus episode last week
okay.
about who we're going to vote for.
Right.
And that episode may never see the light of day.
Right.
So without our audience hearing that episode, I don't feel like I can say too much and like have it understood in context.
Okay.
So I wish our president sincerely a full, swift recovery so that this election can continue as unimpeded as possible.
I agree. I second that. I can second that.
Yes.
Yep. What is your current event?
Um, well, we already discussed the president being. Ooh, pardon me. It's
Gotta
eight
wrap
thirty.
this up.
8:30 p.m. I'm ready for bed. Um, I we already discussed the president contracting the coronavirus, so
Mhm.
that's obviously big. I'm gonna think back to a week ago. Then we recorded our podcast episode on Tuesday
Mhm.
night, and then after that was the presidential debate. Did you watch it?
I did. I did.
Okay. Yeah, my friend Andy came over and he watched it with his brought his dog, and so and my housemate was here, and so there were the three of us plus the two dogs, and
Mhm.
um, I I just it was disgraceful.
Yeah.
It was so disgraceful, and I do think that one of the candidates did more to debase the debate than the other, but neither man comported himself well. Neither of them was presidential. I um, the, what what is the world thinking? What is the world thinking as they look on this? And one, the search term "how to move to Canada" experienced a jump of 1,000 times its normal frequency on Google that night.
Wow.
With good reason. I mean, what is happening to this country? We
Yeah.
have completely lost the ability for civil discourse.
Yeah. I think we really do need to see, examples of that, because I mean, I really, like, I left that night thinking, like, this is what we expect, like, in some ways,
Yes.
this is what we expect.
But my niece and nephew, 3 and 5 years old, they are growing up in a country where this is what a presidential debate looks like, where this is where the current president and the former vice president, this is the nature of their dialogue. And we've got to put quotes around the word dialogue, because that's not what it was. It was just shouting at one another.
Let me can I push back on you a little bit? I did see an art see a video where one guy, I think one of the anchors called it a dumpster fire, and his comment was it was a dumpster fire of one. um like I think I guess, like, how much can you blame Joe Biden?
I like I said in like I said, I do think one candidate deserves more blame than the other.
Yeah.
But Joe Biden was not completely innocent. I mean, I I'm sorry. You are not allowed to tell the president of the United States to shut up.
Mm.
You are not allowed to call the president of the United States a clown.
Mm.
I understand why he did, because the president wouldn't shut up
Right.
and was behaving like a clown.
Okay. Okay.
But you don't say those things to the president.
Oh man.
That's how I feel. I think the dignity of the office, the person in office is bringing no dignity to it. I acknowledge that, but they still hold the office of the presidency of the United States of America, and even if you don't respect the person in that office, you need to respect the office itself. I mean, I wish that Joe Biden had behaved like more an adult and just sat back. And I mean, I, I think this is really sad what I'm about to say, because we are talking about the presidential debate determining the next leader of the United States. But if I were Joe Biden's debate coach and I had foreseen the president's behavior, I would have said, you need to act like your third grade teacher did. Mr. President, I won't interrupt you. Mr. President, I won't talk over you. Mr. President, I'll wait until you're finished.
He needed to go to a first and second grade classroom. Like,
that's what he needed to do. And so anyway, I wish that's what he had done. I wish he had, instead of "Will you shut up, man," which I don't think we should be celebrating. I don't think the Democrats should be selling T-shirts proud of telling the president to shut up, even though there was a little bit of there was a moment where the blackness of my evil heart enjoyed that, until my brain stopped and thought about the respect that I think the office of the presidency is due. I just wish that the approach had been, If you don't want me to speak tonight, then fine. You just spew your lies, and the American people will see you for the bully you are.
I mean, I think that's an interesting approach. I feel like, I mean, what got Trump elected is that some people do want to bully, though. You know what I'm saying?
I
Well,
and in and I mean in this republic,
mm-hmm.
if the majority of people want a bully, then we are getting exactly what we deserve.
Yeah.
And I believe that um, I believe that horrible people should get the same one vote per person that you and I get, Phil. And they choose, if they choose a bully, then we just have to pray that other countries' immigration is more open than this country's immigration.
Oh man. Okay. I think I think we probably could change, kind of move on. And I know you're tired.
I'm tired. I might, when I listen to this episode, I might be like, Phil, why didn't you stop me?
Oh, yeah, we're gonna. I thought we were gonna be under 50, but maybe we still can be under 50. So let's jump into it. What what did you learn?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you for being vulnerable about how reading was a struggle for you, and you were scared of it. That was very poignant, and I think it illustrated the point really beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you. I think for me, I feel like you're probably pretty vulnerable too. I think, most people who are in your position would definitely be doing virtual choirs right now. So to kind of share that is one of your fears, I think is vulnerable for you too. So I think we're both being vulnerable tonight.
For the record,
Uh-huh.
if my school had gone fully virtual, then I would have learned how to do virtual
Yeah.
choir. I would have had no choice.
Right, right.
But since my school is meeting face to face 5 days a week,
Mm-hmm.
I was spared that fate,
Right.
which is evidence that God loves me.
He hears prayers. He hears and answers prayers.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Lord. All right. Phil, anything else on your end?
I'll say last thing really quick, humility, important, especially
Mm,
in this conversation. So I want to end on that word. Just stay humble. Stay humble.
mm,
Yeah.
yes. Yes. Well, dear audience, I will say bye for now.
Adios.